Welcome back to Secrets of Buried Stories. The age of exploration was filled with daring voyages into the unknown, pushing the boundaries of human endurance and geographical knowledge. But sometimes the unknown pushes back with terrifying force. The Franklin expedition, sent to find the elusive Northwest Passage through the Canadian Arctic, is perhaps the most famous and tragic example of a well-equipped expedition vanishing without a trace, its fate a frozen, buried secret for over 160 years. In May 1845, Sir John Franklin, a veteran Arctic explorer, set sail from England with two state-of-the-art ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror. These were no ordinary sailing vessels. They were reinforced against ice, equipped with steam engines and screw propellers, a relatively new technology, and carried provisions for 3 years, including an estimated 8,000 tins of preserved food. The mission was ambitious: find a navigable route through the Arctic linking the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. They were last seen by European whalers in Baffin Bay in late July 1845, waiting for an opportunity to enter the ice. Then silence. As years passed with no word, concern grew into alarm. Numerous search expeditions were launched, funded by the British government and Franklin's determined wife, Lady Jane Franklin. These searches, often perilous endeavors themselves, gradually began to piece together a horrifying picture. They collected accounts from the local Inuit people, who spoke of seeing starving white men, sometimes dragging sleds, and finding signs of death and desperation. These accounts, initially dismissed by the British Admiralty, would later be proved to be horrifyingly accurate. In 1859, a search party led by Francis Leopold McClintock found a cairn on King William Island containing a crucial document. It was a standard naval form, with a note written around the margin. The first note stated that the ships had become trapped in ice in September 1846, and that Sir John Franklin had died in June 1847. The most chilling addition, written in the margin dated April 1848, stated that the surviving officers and crew, 105 in total, had abandoned the ships and were attempting to trek south to the Back River mainland, a desperate, hopeless journey into the desolate Arctic wilderness. Subsequent searches and Inuit testimony painted a grim picture of this march of the doomed. Artifacts, skeletons, and graves were found scattered along the probable route. Analysis of the remains revealed signs of lead poisoning, likely from improperly soldered food tins, which would have leached into the food over time, causing physical illness and neurological damage. And scurvy, from a lack of vitamin C, weakening the men and clouding their judgment. But the most disturbing evidence came from cut marks on many of the bones, conclusive proof of cannibalism as the men succumbed to starvation and desperation, turning on their fallen comrades in a final, grim act of survival. Despite these finds, the ships themselves remained missing for a century and a half, their location the ultimate buried secret of the expedition. Without the ships, the full story of what happened, when they became trapped, what conditions were like aboard, the final fate of the remaining men, remained incomplete. Then, in 2014, an expedition led by Parks Canada, combining modern technology with the historical Inuit oral traditions that had been so long ignored, discovered the wreck of HMS Erebus south of King William Island, in relatively shallow waters. 2 years later, in 2016, the remarkably well-preserved wreck of HMS Terror was found about 45 miles north of the Erebus, in Terror Bay, deeper and almost perfectly intact on the seabed. The discovery of the ships has allowed for underwater archaeology to provide unprecedented insights. The Terror in particular is a frozen time capsule. Artifacts like plates, bottles, beds, and scientific instruments have been found seemingly abandoned in haste, but in situ. The state of the ships suggests they likely sank sometime after being abandoned, settling relatively gently on the seabed. The new evidence confirms the immense hardship and desperation faced by the crew, but it also deepens the mystery in some ways. Why did the ships become separated? Why was the Terror found so far north of the Erebus? The location of the Terror suggests some men may have reboarded it after the initial abandonment, possibly hoping to sail it south if the ice broke up before it too succumbed. This points to a more complex, drawn-out final chapter than a simple single march of death. What was the final blow? Was it the lead poisoning that drove them to madness and poor decisions? The crippling effects of scurvy? The brutal, unrelenting cold? Or perhaps something else? The Inuit accounts also speak of strange behavior among the men, hinting at a descent into madness that went beyond simple desperation. The environment itself, a vast, white, silent expanse, can have a profound psychological effect, breaking even the strongest of minds. The buried secret of the Franklin expedition is not just the location of the ships, but the full, unvarnished truth of those final, harrowing years trapped in the ice. It's a story of human endurance pushed beyond breaking point, of the clash between Victorian ambition and the brutal reality of the Arctic environment, and of a proud expedition reduced to scattered bones and a legacy of tragedy. The ice and the sea held on to their secrets for a long time. While the discovery of the ships has illuminated much, the final moments of the 129 men, lost to starvation, illness, and the unforgiving Arctic, remain partially obscured, a chilling chapter in the history of exploration, forever buried in the silence of the North.